Hi kids, it's Miss Klaiber and Mr. Dave, and Miss Erica's around here too somewhere. And we have hiked today to a 2,000-year-old tree behind us. 2,000 years. And Miss Klaiber and I were thinking about how fun it is to read in different places, and then what could we read in a really cool place with a 2,000-year-old tree. And so we thought we might read this Dr. Seuss book together, and because it's about trees, but it's also about the environment, and it's about a lot of things. And like our other book that we read together, we're just going to try and see how this works, and we might make some mistakes, but it's okay. And we hope that you enjoy The Lorax by the 2,000-year-old alligator juniper. 2,000 years.
2,000. It's giant, you guys.
Yeah. I mean, I always think of old trees, and I think that they heard like the first axe fall kind of thing, but this tree, which I don't know if it's a boy or girl right now, just looking, I forgot to look at that. You know, it heard the first lots of things. The first airplanes, the first guns, the first horses, probably. Yes, definitely. It was alive for a long time before there was horses here. So, amazing. It's amazing. The Lorax by Dr. Seuss. I'm going to come a little closer. This is our experiment part. I'm really too close now.
We'll do our best.
At the far end of town, where the grickle grass grows, and the wind smells slow and sour when it blows, and no birds ever sing excepting old crows, in the street of the lifted Lorax. That's what that sign says, the street of the lifted Lorax. We'll just start with our 2 pages here. How's that?
Me.
Oh, okay, go ahead.
You?
No, go ahead.
It doesn't matter. Okay. And deep in the grickle grass, some people say, if you look deep enough, you can still see today, where the Lorax once stood just as long as it could, before somebody lifted the Lorax away. What was the Lorax, and why was it there? And why was it lifted and taken somewhere? From the far end of town where the grickle grass grows. The old Onceler still lives here. Ask him, he knows.
You won't see the Onceler. Don't knock at his door. He stays in his lurkum on the top of his store. He lurks in his lurkum, cold under the roof, where he makes his own clothes out of muffered muff. And on special dank midnights in August he peeks out of the shutters, and sometimes he speaks and tells how the Lorax was lifted away. He'll tell you, perhaps, if you're willing to pay.
On the end of a rope, he lets down a tin pail, and you have to toss in 15 cents and a nail, and the shell of a great-great-great-grandfather snail.
As a little kid, I always thought it was really interesting that kid actually had those things in his pocket, and you can actually see him throwing in a little nail. When I was little, I was like, what? He had a nail in his pocket?
He planned it. He planned ahead of time.
He knew the price. Then he pulls up the pail and makes the most careful count to see if you paid him the proper amount. And then he hides what you paid him away in his snub. Is it snub? His snub, his secret strange hole in his grooveless glove. And then he grunts, I will call you by whisper phone, for the secrets I tell you are for your ears alone.
When I was a kid, the glove bothered me.
Yes, the hole in his snub.
A very weird shaped glove.
It is. That's how I was getting comfortable here.
Slup. Down slups the whisper-mophone to your ear, and the old Onceler's whispers are not very clear, since they have to come down through a snurgly hose, and he sounds as if he had smallish bees up his nose. Now I'll tell you, he says, with his teeth sounding gray, how the Lorax got lifted and taken away. It all started way back such a long, long time ago.
How do your teeth sound gray? It's a good descriptor. Way back in the days when the grass was still green and the pond was still wet and the clouds were still clean and the song of the swomy swans rang out in space, One morning I came to this glorious place, and I first saw the trees, the truffula trees, the bright colored tufts of the truffula trees, mile after mile in the fresh morning breeze.
So many flies. From the rippleless pond came the comfortable, oops, there's words over here. Sorry, guys. And under the trees I saw brown barbaloots, frisking about in their barbaloot suits, as they played in the shade and ate truffula fruits. From the rippleless pond came the comfortable sound of the humming fish humming while splashing around.
But those trees, those truffula trees, all of my life I've been searching for trees such as these, the touch of their tufts which was much softer than silk, and they had the sweet smell of fresh butterfly milk. I felt a great leaping of joy in my heart. I knew what to do. I unloaded my cart.
In no time at all, I had built a small shop. Then I chopped down a truffula tree with one chop. And with great skillful skill and with great speedy speed, I took the soft tuft and I knitted a thneed.
Thneed.
Everyone needs a thneed.
A thneed, a thneed. Maybe that's what I mean by it sounds like he has bees in his nose.
Could be.
The instant I'd finished, I heard a gazump. I looked, and I saw something pop out of the stump of the tree I chopped down. It was sort of a man. Describe him? That's hard. I don't know if I can. He was shortish and oldish and brownish and mossy, and he spoke with a voice that was sharpish and bossy. That's a fun description, too.
Mister, he said with a sawdusty sneeze, I am the Lorax. I speak for the trees. I speak for the trees have no tongues. And I'm asking you, sir, at the top of my lungs. He was very upset as he shouted and puffed. What's that thing you've made out of my truffula tuft?
Look, Lorax, I said. There's no cause for alarm. I chopped just one tree. I am doing no harm. I'm being quite useful. This thing is a thneed, and a thneed is a fine something that all people need. It's a shirt, it's a sock, it's a glove, it's a hat, but it has other uses, yes, far beyond that. You can use it for carpets, for pillows, for sheets, or curtains or covers on bicycle seats. The Lorax said, Sir, you are crazy with greed. There was no one on earth who would buy that fool thneed. Don't ever be surprised, kids, about the depth of what people might buy.
But the very next minute, I proved he was wrong. For just at that minute, a chap came along, and he thought that the thneed I had knitted was great. He happily bought it for $3.98. I laughed at the Lorax. You poor stupid guy. You never can tell what some people will buy.
True that. I repeat, cried the Lorax, I speak for the trees. I am busy, I told him. Shut up, if you please. And I rushed across the room, and in no time at all, I built a radio phone, and I put in a quick call. I called on my brothers and uncles and aunts, and I said, listen here, here's a wonderful chance for the whole Unsler family. Is it Unsler or Wensler?
Wensler.
The Wensler. The whole Wensler family to get mighty rich. Get over here and take the road to North Nitch. Turn left at Weehawken, sharp right at South Stitch.
And in no time at all, in the factory I built, the whole Wensler family was working full tilt. We were all knitting thneeds, just as busy as bees, to the sound of the chopping of truffula trees.
I always thought as a kid too, it's interesting that you never get to see what these people look like. You see their weird little green arms and their hands and their spooky gloves with holes in them, but that's it. You never see the people.
Nope.
I don't know if they are people. Then, oh baby, oh, how my business did grow. Now chopping one tree at a time was too slow, so I quickly invented my super axe hacker, which whacked off 4 truffula trees at one smacker. We were making needs 4 times as fast as before, and that Lorax, he didn't show up anymore.
But the next week he knocked on my new office door. He snapped, "I'm the Lorax who speaks for the trees, which you seem to be chopping as fast as you please. But I'm also in charge of the brown barbaloots, who played in the shade of their barbaloot suits, and happily lived eating truffula fruits. Now, thanks to your hacking my trees to the ground, there's not enough truffula fruit to go round. And my poor barbaloots are all getting the crummies because they have gas and no food in their tummies." So sad.
It is. They loved living here, but I can't let them stay. They have to find food, and I hope that they may. "Good luck, boys," he cried, and he sent them away. I, the onceler, felt sad as I watched them all go, but business is business, and business must grow regardless of crummies and tummies, you know. There's always things you can relate this to in life every time you read a story.
Yep. I meant no harm, I most truly did not, but I had to grow bigger, so bigger I got. I biggered my factory, I biggered my roads, I biggered my wagons, I biggered the loads of the thneeds I shipped out. I was shipping them forth to the south, to the east, to the west, to the north. I went right on biggering, selling more thneeds, and I biggered my money, which everyone needs. All their truck says, "You need a thneed."
And now there's a lot of smog going into the air with their factory, and I can see more and more open space and less truffulas. Then again, he came back. I was fixing some pipes when that old nuisance Lorax came back with more gripes. "I am the Lorax," he coughed and he whiffed. He sneezed and he snuffed, he snargled, he sniffed. "Onceler," he cried with a cruffulous croak. "Onceler, you're making such smogulous smoke. My poor swomy swans, why they can't sing a note. No one can sing who has smog in his throat." And those look like some sad birds.
They do indeed. Wilty feathers. "And so," said the Lorax, "please pardon my cough, they cannot live here, so I'm sending them off. Where will they go? I don't hopefully know. They may have to fly for a month or a year to escape from the smog you've smogged up around here."
"What's more," snapped the Lorax, his dander was up, "let me say a few words about gluppity-glup. Your machinery chugs on day and night without stop, making gluppity-glup, which is also sloppity-slop. And what do you do with all this leftover goo? Well, I'll show you, you dirty old onceler man, you." And you can just see this gloppy, gloopaless, sloppity.
On the ground, it's everywhere.
It's glooping and glopping all over. Looks like oobleck, which we know is not a good thing to have around. But that doesn't look like.
Even worse when it gets outside. "You're glumping the pond where the humming fish hummed. No more can they hum, for their gills are all gummed. So I'm sending them off. Oh, their future is dreary. They'll walk on their fins and get woefully weary, in search of some water that isn't so smeary."
Walking fish. I've seen mudfish. They actually do walk out of the pond.
Heard about them.
It's weird. And then I got mad. I got terribly mad, and I yelled at the Lorax, "Now listen here, Dad." In the old days, they'd call people Dad, as like old man. "All you do is yap and say, 'Bad, bad, bad, bad.' Well, I have my rights, sir, and I'm telling you, I intend to go on doing just what I do. And for your information, you Lorax, I'm figuring on biggering and biggering and biggering and biggering, turning more truffula trees into thneeds, which everyone needs. I don't know about that, sir.
Oh boy, okay. And at that very moment, we heard a loud whack. From outside in the fields came a sickening smack of an axe on a tree. Then we heard the tree fall, the very last truffula tree of them all.
That would be a sad day. No more trees, no more needs, no more work to be done. So in no time, my uncles and aunts, everyone, all waved me goodbye, and they jumped into my cars, and they drove away under the smoke-smuggered stars. Now all that was left, 'neath the bad-smelling sky, was my big empty factory, the Lorax and I.
The Lorax said nothing, just gave me a glance, just gave me a very sad backward glance, as he lifted himself by the seat of his pants. And I'll never forget the grim look on his face when he hoisted himself and took leave of this place, through a hole in the smog, without leaving a trace.
And all that the Lorax left here in this mess was a small pile of rocks with the word unless. Whatever that means, well, I just couldn't guess. But that was long, long ago. But each day since that day, I've sat here and I've worried away through the years while my buildings have fallen apart. I've worried about it with all of my heart.
But now, says the Onceler, now that you're here, the word of the Lorax seems perfectly clear. Unless someone like you cares a whole awful lot, nothing's going to get better. It's not.
So, catch, calls the Onceler, and he lets something fall. It's a truffula seed. It's the last one of all. You're in charge of the last of the truffula seeds, and the truffula trees are what everyone needs. Plant a new truffula and treat it with care, give it clean water and feed it fresh air, and grow a forest and protects it from axes that hack, and then the Lorax and all of his friends may come back. Snip, snap, snap. That story's told out.
So many flies.
Dawn, what do you think that story's about?
Well, always I think about this story and I think about treating our earth with care and using our resources well, being responsible with what we have, and not expecting it to just last and last and last forever. But after you and I were talking, I started thinking more about how you mentioned it's also about speaking for those without a voice.
Yeah.
And how we can do that for things in nature, like the Lorax did for the trees. He speaks for the trees because they don't have a voice, but how we could also do that in other areas of our lives.
Yep. And I agree with what Miss Klaiber says there 100%. And I think it also shows about how things are really connected. You know, he was really kind of just cutting the trees and stuff, but the trees started the downfall of everything, the lack of the trees. And then the bears got sick, and then the gluppity-glup was filling the... It all starts with... It's all connected, so you can't just come into a place and take what you want without realizing it's going to affect all those things around it. And I do think it's really important to speak up for things that don't have a voice. And I think that changes from time to time what that could be like. And there's been times in my life when I, in retrospect, wish I would have said something when I didn't. And there's been times in my life when I wasn't able to say something, but someone next to me was able to. And there's been times in my life when I wasn't even maybe able to say something for myself, and I had no voice, I was voiceless, and then someone with a voice spoke for me. And I think that's what we can do for each other. We do that for our friends, we do that for families, we do that for human beings that we see in the street and pass in our lives, and we can do that with trees and plants too. And I think the more we do that, the more care we show the world around us, the more we realize that the world does care for us.
Yeah. The more kindness and wonder we can spread and share with our world. So.
Yeah, and Miss Klaiber and I, we speak for you guys. If we ever saw that you needed a voice, we could be voices for you.
Yeah.
And look, you get to see how amazing this tree is, which I might be wrong, but I'm thinking it's a boy. And it probably puts off a lot of pollen. But 2,000 years, kids, that's a long time. They had sailboats. And the Mayan or the Aztecs were still around. And maybe the Mayan too. They were too. Mayans were around. Yeah, crazy. It's just so cool. Thanks for joining us.
Bye, kids.